Hey, it's Hawken with TOPDON. Today we're going to do a video here at Emergency Fleet Service in Warren, Michigan. Just want to say a special thank you for them hosting us here to let us create our video on site. And what we're going to do today is introduce you and walk you through some of the basics of the TOPDON HeavyDuty software. Now, the TOPDON HeavyDuty software is available as an add-on software for a wide variety of TOPDON Phoenix series tools, specifically the TOPDON Phoenix Max, the TOPDON Phoenix Smart, the TOPDON Phoenix Remote, and the TOPDON Phoenix X-Link. Now, the coverage is similar on each of those tools, but not identical. We're going to show you the link to the coverage map so that you can check for each tool to find out which one is going to meet your needs best. We're also going to show you here in the video just the basic connection and setup process for the software, as well as some helpful tips and tricks so you can become familiar with using the software every day. All right, let's go ahead and get into the video. Now, there's a couple of things you want to keep in mind specifically with regards to the HD software package. The HD software package comes standard with the standard 6-pin and 9-pin connectors that are used in the heavy-duty market. Now, those are OBD connectors, and there are a wide variety of other connectors that are available in the HD connector kit. Those connectors are typically used as proprietary compatible connectors for a wide variety of different vehicle and equipment manufacturers. So again, the standard heavy-duty software upgrade comes with the 6-pin and 9-pin OBD connectors or cables, and those are normally going to work on the vast majority of applications. But again, some vehicles and equipment may also use proprietary connectors for various systems, as well as increased access to certain systems on various vehicles or equipment. So, today we're going to be using a 9-pin connector on a Freightliner, and we're going to take you through some of the software and just kind of walk you through some of the basics and the setup process. This will be a video that's very general and allows you to kind of get a basic feel for how the software works and some of the things you will want to keep in mind as you use the tool. So let's go ahead and we'll show you here the screen on the Max. Okay, so now we're going to take you through the software and just show you kind of some of the avenues that you want to be aware of when dealing with heavy-duty applications. So we're going to go into the scan menu here, and it's important to understand that inside the scan menu you have a number of different tabs across the top here. Now, it depends on what software you have activated as far as what options you're going to have here. But if we're dealing with heavy duty, we do have a tab here for heavy duty. Heavy duty is going to contain a large number of different variety of applications, including truck, bus, machinery, and so on and so forth. Additionally, there are tabs up here on the top. We have vehicle brand, engine, and ECU. So, if we want to talk to a specific system or powertrain or whatever it may be, we may be able to access that through whoever made the equipment or the cab. We may also be able to access that system via, if it's an engine, through the engine menu or the ECU menu. So we are currently sitting inside a Freightliner. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to scroll down until we find the Freightliner application. Now, of course, as always, we want to make sure we have stable battery voltage, and we want to make sure that we are firmly connected to the port for diagnostics. Now, it's also important to point out here, when we are dealing with heavy-duty applications, whether it be a truck, a piece of equipment, a tractor, or otherwise, it is extremely possible that we may have multiple diagnostic connectors on the vehicle. That means depending on which connector we are connected to with the tool, is going to affect which systems we can communicate with and what functions we have available within the software. So in this case, we're going to try talking to this vehicle through the Freightliner software first and see what options we have at our disposal. Now, once we get into the heavy-duty menus, we're going to have the option to automatically search, manually select, or use OBD mode. Now again, OBD mode is very similar to light-duty automotive, where this is a standardized set of data PIDs and code definitions and things that are very generic in nature, right? Not manufacturer specific. So typically I'm going to usually try automatic search first, and then if that doesn't work, then I will do a manual selection. And of course, it's always best if we have the tool connected to the internet via Wi-Fi to ensure, number one, the most accurate identification of the vehicle, but also access to the largest variety of tests, functions, and live data. Because of course, the amount of data that has to be stored in order to operate on a wide variety of vehicles, such as the Max has capabilities, requires that the internet is accessible. Okay, so now we have successfully identified this vehicle. And down in the bottom, we can see the application. So this is a 2016 Freightliner Cascadia sleeper cab, 125-inch. We also have the VIN number listed down here. And you can see we do have access to a wide variety of systems, even though we are only connected specifically here to the OBD connector or the central connector down on the bottom left of where the steering wheel is located. However, you can see we can talk to the vast majority of systems on this vehicle. Now, as you go to older vehicles, you may often have to access additional connectors in order to be able to have access to various functions. So we're going to go ahead and go into the engine controls, but the first thing we're going to do before we do that is a health report. Now, if we have access to a large number of systems on a given piece of equipment or tractor trailer, we can go in here and have a module topology scan like this. If we prefer, we can do a system list like this. The system list will give us the definitions or the names of all the specific systems it can talk to. And here on the topology list, we have our normal topology screen. So if we do a smart scan, we can then get a basic overview of the system health. And of course, this is a nice thing to be able to show your customers and or give you a little bit more intelligence about the vehicle at a quick glance. So as you can see, we do have a number of fault codes. We're going to hit report. Now remember, just like in the light duty, we have the ability to label our reports pre-scan, diagnostic scan, or post-scan. If we create a pre-scan and a post-scan, we can actually integrate those into one synchronous report that will show us the fault codes before we performed any services or repairs, and they will show us any faults that are still coming back after we do our testing and our repairs and cycle the key and drive the vehicle. We can rescan it again, do a post-scan, and integrate those two into one report. So this is a pre-scan, and we're going to hit OK. And we're going to skip through here. We're going to open our report. Here is our diagnostic report. And you can see here's a bunch of different codes. So it looks like we have a power supply fault. We have an injector solenoid fault, and a variety of other different fault codes here. And again, we can always quickly email this if we wish. Up here in the top right corner, we have the little triangle or three dots with a couple of lines, and email it right here. Now, the other thing you also can see is that we do time and date stamp our reports, which of course is helpful for communication with the customer. So we're going to go back. Now, one other thing I should mention while we're here on the screen is if you look, you can see In some cases, we may see access to who made a given system. So here we do have a Wabco ABS system. So if for any reason a function is not working through the Freightliner software, we could go into the Wabco software from the scan menu and attempt to talk to that particular control unit or system through the Wabco software as opposed to the Freightliner software. This is a Cummins ISX, so we also might be able to talk to it through the Cummins software if we just want to talk to the engine, and there may be different functions available through that avenue. So just a couple of notes to keep in mind. Again, this is very specific to heavy duty. So we're going to go into the ECM here. It shows us our codes at a quick glance. We're going to enter in. Here we're going to get some additional information about the application, ECM number, ECM part number, and a wide variety of other things like that. Then we're going to get our traditional menus, and what menus we have access to are going to be a function of what functions are supported by the people who made the particular powertrain, system, or platform that you're working on. So if there is a function for something on a Cummins, in general, you will typically find that in the menu structure here. So in this case, we might want to look under actuation test and see what options we have at our disposal. So here's a big long list of some various things that we can do. We have VGT related testing. We have fuel system leakage test. We have after treatment SCR testing, and a wide variety of other tests that may be useful for diagnostics or service. We have cylinder kill test. We can do a standing regen over here. So again, quite a bit of variety here as far as what we have for tests and functions. And, of course, it's going to vary by vehicle and application. We also can go in and look at our DTCs in more detail. You see we have a couple of different things we can click on, so we're going to try each and see what we have under each menu. So here are the two fault codes we have here. You can also see if we have DTCs in the other menu. And it looks like we can read them through both menus. Now, we may also have freeze frame data for these. And of course, sometimes the freeze frame data may be very useful. You can see right there was a low voltage condition. 11.25 volts is pretty low. And that fault was related to power supply. You can see what we have for freeze frame data here on the injector solenoid. Now, sometimes, again, this may be useful information. Other situations, it may not provide much insight. So it looks like in this case, there's a pretty wide variety of information that is stored specifically here in the freeze frame data for this vehicle. We're going to hit back. Now we can also look at data stream. So if we want to read specific data PIDs to try and help us with our diagnosis here, we do have that capability, which of course is always a useful function to have at our disposal. You can see here the parameters are broken down into various categories, or we can look at all parameters in one shot. Now, we can also go into some of these other menus. Of course, if we look at version information as an example, this is what popped up when we initially started communication with the control unit for this system. We may also have access to a wide variety of other menus. We showed you there is a lot of data stream information available. We can look at the freeze frames independently here, and it tells us which DTCs we may have freeze frame data for. We also have the ability, we showed you the actuation test menu here. We also have the ability to look at features and parameters. So again, this is going to be different depending on the application. Some applications will have more options than others. And we see there is a wide variety of different menus in here. As far as what specific options you have, what you can change or manipulate is going to vary by vehicle. Let's take a look in idle shutdown and see what we have. So we have a bunch of different parameters in here that can be viewed and or potentially changed. Let's see what else we have access to here. So here's a high soot load shutdown. We'll go back. See, there's a number of other options here in the features and parameters here as well. So again, there may be a wide degree of customization that you can make to the vehicle's operation, depending on the specific application, and of course, depending on what is supported by that particular control module. Now we also have this advanced ECM data. This may provide a variety of information that may be helpful in terms of determining root causes of particular failures. So for instance, if we had an after-treatment problem, we could potentially look at after-treatment history and potentially determine if there was any data that might help us have insight into the root cause. So we could look at our regeneration history log, potentially get some good data that will help us diagnose a concern. So there's no data for this particular one. Looks like there's some stored data under that option. And of course, there's a variety of other menus here that we're not going to walk through today. So as you can see, there's a wide variety of supported functions here within the software. Now, no scan tool has every function for every vehicle, but you're going to see a pretty wide variety of common functions and necessary functions on most vehicles or equipment that you are dealing with, supported through the Phoenix Max, the Phoenix Smart, the Phoenix Remote, and the Phoenix X-Link with the heavy-duty software upgrade. Again, some of that is dependent on which connector you are connected to on the specific vehicle or application, and what systems that vehicle has equipped. It is also dependent on whether or not you are using the generic 6 and 9 pin connectors, or if you are using a specific OEM cable and accessing a proprietary connector. So, what functions you can execute will be affected by how you're connected and where you're connected on that particular piece of equipment or vehicle. So just a couple of simple tech tips to keep in mind as you work on heavy-duty applications. You can see here we do have access to a few other systems, and if we tap on them, we can also see what those other potential faults are. So here you can see we have a voltage fault in the central gateway, which is pretty expected since we had a voltage fault in the ECM. You can also see here we have some other related voltage faults. Now they show inactive currently, but again, simple things that we can look for clues. You can also see here, if we do our diagnostic plan, it gives us some more information on the codes in one shot that we can see in a simple screen. So again, pretty straightforward and simple to navigate, but as you saw, we went in and we talked to this Cummins through the Freightliner software. Now we're going to take you back out and we're going to talk to it through the Cummins software. So we're going to go here, and now, if you are on the All menu, you can simply go to the top right and start typing in the manufacturer. Now we can click on the Cummins software. We can click OK. And even though we haven't changed anything with regards to how we are connected to the vehicle or the system, we can now go into the Cummins software and view if there are any different menu options or functions supported directly through the Cummins software that may not be available through the Freightliner software. Here you can see we get all the same basic information because of course we're talking to the same module. And now we have similar, if not the same, menus. Again, we can look through each of our menus and see if we have new options or different options than we had under the other menus. Typically, they're going to be the same, but if you feel like you are missing something in one of the menus when you went through the general cab builder like Freightliner, then you may want to try talking to that particular component or system through the software of that particular manufacturer. So again, in this case, we were talking to a Freightliner with a Cummins engine, so we tried going through the Freightliner software. Now, instead, we've backed out and we're talking to the system through the Cummins software. So again, we will have the opportunity and option to build the vehicle or talk to the system, both potentially through the cab or equipment manufacturer software, and then potentially also the manufacturer of the subsystem itself. So, just a couple of simple tech tips that we wanted to talk about here with regards to how we deal with the software and have the greatest success and coverage on the functions we are trying to achieve. Just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to watch our introduction video here on the Phoenix Max, the Phoenix Smart, the Phoenix Remote, and the Phoenix X-Link heavy-duty software upgrade package. Hopefully you learned something about just a little bit of the basic usage and setup for the software, and now you feel a little more comfortable as how you might use this software in the field on a regular basis. Of course, if you have questions or concerns, we are always interested in your feedback as well as helping you answer the questions that you have. We appreciate you liking, subscribing, and sharing our videos anywhere you feel it would help other users. And of course, as always, I'm Hawken with TOPDON. Thanks again for watching today.